Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY!
43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody. Welcome aboard. How are you doing on this fine Tuesday? Thank you very much for being with us. Appreciate you so much. Of course, we are powered by Andy Moore Honda and brought to you by the Autograph app, where real fans get unreal rewards. Just go to link.ag.fan/ISB media. You see it right there if you're on following us on YouTube. But again, that is link.ag.fan/ISB media. And they'll get you a nice discount. But you build up rewards. It's a great place. You get all your interest in one spot. If you're a Hoosier fan, you'll have all kinds of things that are in one place. There's no cost or anything like that. They just like to have the readers, and it's a great place to go. Download that from your Google Play or Apple Store app. So you can find it all in one place. How's everybody doing? Appreciate everybody hitting us up on the Andy Moore Honda hotline as well. Plenty to get to today. Mike DeCourcy on the program as usual. Chronic Hoosier. And is that it? Do we have anybody else after that, John Boy?
I believe that's all we have scheduled for the day.
All right. We'll have to get that changed in the near future. And plenty to talk about. The college sports and revenue sharing is something that is probably on the precipice of happening. We'll talk about that. Also, you remember back when the students from Iowa State got busted for gambling on sports in general? Well, that's kind of coming back to bite those not the bettors, but the agencies that placed the charges on them. And there's a lawsuit filed by, I think, most of the participants that were charged in that, and charges have been dropped against the Iowa State or are in the process of being dropped against the Iowa State students, because there may have been some things done with outside of the scope of the abilities of those legal entities that went into that. So that's going to be something. The college sports antitrust case with the that's big though. It basically means that the leaders of college sports, which not exactly whom they are, but they're in deep discussions to reach a legal settlement that would lay out basically the framework for revenue sharing with athletes in a future NCAA business model. How that goes, that is going to be interesting. I saw that we have a birthday, Russell. Happy B-Day. Hope everybody's doing well on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Appreciate everybody that's on there from all over the place. Shenanigans, Fred from over in PA, Donald down in Atlanta, at ATL, Brian, Ellerton, Florida. Yet to stop by the Ugly Grouper. Doug, a little closer to home. Russell, who was born and raised in a small town named Fort Wayne a long time ago on this date, April 30th, last day of April, by the way. Colts draft, yeah, we'll have to get into that. Mike mentioned Gritty on board the truth. He's with us fast. Hope you're doing well. James, how are you, sir? Appreciate having you as well. Mike, Chris, checking in from Walton, England. Hope it's a merry day in England. What else do we have to talk about? I wanted to make sure that there was something Indiana men's soccer schedule is out. And I'm wondering, with the addition of programs like UCLA and Washington, Oregon, the college soccer has long been dominated by either the ACC or East Coast teams. And I'm wondering, can the Big Ten step up and challenge the ACC to become more of a dominant or equally dominant league? It doesn't mean a whole lot, but it kind of does when you have as many schools in your conference as the Big Ten will. Basketball playoffs are happening. Like I said, LeBron is gone. The LA Lakers lost a tough fight last night. Not gonna lie, man. They put up a great fight on the road at what is the greatest and most aptly named arena in America, and that is out in Denver. Do you know what the name of Denver's arena is?
Isn't it Ball Arena?
It is. Look at John Boy jumping on. But do you know what that means?
I have no idea. I thought it was just a brand of some sort.
It is.
That I was unaware of. Okay.
It is. You're on it. You're rolling. It's an old brand, baby. It's got the same. It's how ball is written. It's been that way for. I'm going to look that up in a minute, but I just thought that is the most aptly named and coolest. Ball Arena. Welcome to Ball Arena for some ball. It's ball mason jars.
Really? Huh.
Yes.
What an interesting sponsor.
I didn't realize it until I was watching the game last night, and immediately thought two things. What a weird sponsor, but what a way to have the most aptly named arena sponsorship in the country.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, that is that's pretty cool. Whoever thought of that went to the company and first come up with that. That's
I know it used to be, or it was formerly known as the Pepsi Center. It was pretty basic.
And that has a lot of draw to it. That's a lot of magic right there. Yeah, but it's that's just cool. But you can see how the logo is written out. That's ball mason jars, man. And did you know the Ball Arena is privately owned and operated? How many arenas can be said about that?
Yeah, it's a interesting little tidbit for sure. I feel like most of the arenas nowadays or stadiums are run by companies like AEG and stuff like that.
Well, exactly. Corporate crap. Here, a few other unique, privately owned and operated, as I mentioned. Started as a Pepsi Center, as you mentioned. Opened on October 1st, 1999, with a sold-out performance by Miss Celine Dion.
Really? Huh.
Yes. The Ball Corporation acquired the naming rights and renamed the venue Ball Arena in 2020. So, and then that got me to thinking, how old is the Ball Corporation? Because those have been around for a long time. Everybody's grandmother.
Here we go. The Ball Corporation was founded in the year 1880, over 144 years ago.
I knew it.
In Buffalo, New York.
That's a little bit of an oddity.
And it was originally known as the Wooden Jacket Can Company.
Yeah, they're into all kinds of stuff, man. It says Ball leads in aluminum packaging because we defy the status, blah, blah, blah. That's marketing crap. But they're into so much more. Well, of course, I guess you have to be. You can't build a 100 and whatever year old company that's still in operating in business today on just glass mason jars.
Yeah.
But that's what they're at least known for to me.
Their headquarters used to be in Muncie, Indiana, believe it or not, from what I'm seeing.
That is hilarious.
But now they're headquartered, of course, in Colorado.
All the funny little things you learn. So was the Ball mason jar invented in Mason, Indiana?
No, I believe it was invented in Buffalo. That's where this stuff got started. And then they they renamed their business the Ball Brothers Glass Manufacturing Company in 1886. That's a few years after it was created. And that's when they moved to Muncie in 1889. So their original headquarters, I guess outside of where it was founded, was in Indiana. Imagine if Assembly Hall was Ball Hall.
Oh my God, that would be. Oh my gosh, that is. That would be amazing. That would be amazing. But hey, lots to get to on the program today. Looking forward to talking to Mike DeCourcy about all of these different things that I've already mentioned. And also it's today's the 30th. So when does it's almost time for the portal to close.
The portal closes at midnight tonight.
Yeah. It's closing time. Yeah, they should play that song as it goes out.
It'd be true closing time if they weren't able to make any decisions past tonight. But obviously, this will no longer allow players to enter the portal, but those who are already in it will still have, I don't know if there's any other deadlines for choosing a school, but until that deadline hits, whenever it is, there will still be plenty of guys for schools to choose from that have open scholarships, including Indiana, who have 2 more to fill.
Yeah, and I was looking at something yesterday. All the grief that Dion received for it ended up being, I forget how many players eventually left Colorado, but it showed where they all ended up. Not a lot of them ended up at a Power 5 school. The majority of them went to lower than that. Some of them went unsigned. So he did the right thing. I mean, he came in and quickly diagnosed that, sorry, but this is not. Oh, hello, Ball State, Muncie.
Oh my gosh. What the heck? Why weren't we thinking of that?
Because we're not that smart, I guess.
Well, now I've got to confirm this before we get to our first time out.
Yeah, that's driving me.
In 1917, the Ball brothers, the founders of the Ball Corporation, acquired and foreclosed Indiana Normal Institute and gave the school and surrounding land to the state of Indiana. Thus, Ball State was born. Little history lesson today.
My goodness. And it just keeps on continuing, and all because of basketball. Phillips balling out. There you go. Yep, it closes at midnight. Hey, we've got to take a break. We've got lots more coming up on the program today. Like I said, Mike DeCourcy will be joining us. Of course, Mike from the Sporting News and the Big Ten Network. Plenty to get to, and looking forward to it. We'll hear a little bit more from the trio that we heard from yesterday, another clip from them. And we'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Autograph app, where real fans get unreal rewards. Just go to link.ag.fan/ISB Media. Back right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Finish your whiskey and beer. It's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Here's some news that Zach Osterman just put out. IU has a verbal agreement in place to extend its long-standing relationship with apparel partner Adidas, a 10-year extension. The finalized deal is likely coming in the next few weeks.
Thank you, sir. Well, Indiana is one of Adidas's top brands. That's one thing Indiana has going for it with that.
Yeah, they'll never
have.
I mean, I don't want to say never, but I don't see them, at least in the foreseeable future, ever abandoning Adidas.
Well, no. How the hell would I know where Ball State got its name? Tom? I barely know where Indiana got its name.
All right, Maria and Mike. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Jim.
Hello, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing well.
Boy, you're looking more and more tucked in every time I see you.
All right, here we go, guys.
Hog steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Tuesday after just a good old-fashioned rain soaker, man. It was one of those rains. It was steady and calm. It didn't stop for hours. Great to listen to while you're working away. Join in Mike DeCourcy from the Big Ten Network and the Sporting News. How are you today, sir?
I am well, Jim. How are you?
I am just peachy, can't complain. Nobody wants to listen to it, so we'll move on. No, I'm just kidding. We were discussing earlier something that was just trivial, but last night in watching the LA Lakers and the Denver Nuggets, I noticed that the Nuggets home arena is Ball Arena. And I'm like, first of all, the most aptly named arena in the country. I'm like, how cool is that? And then I see the logo and I instantly know that that's Ball Mason Jar, the father and mother of Ball Mason Jars. I can tell by the logo. And then we start doing some research, and John discovers that they were originally headquartered, I think, in Muncie, Indiana. And then someone mentioned Ball State, and I'm like, hello, oh my goodness. So it just kind of started all colliding together. I did not know that that's where Ball State got their name. So that's crazy. And then I'm like, how? And all this from a mason jar. Your grandma's and great grandmother's mason jars that are still in use today. That has to be one of the remaining industrial inventions that comes from the 1800s that is virtually unchanged to this day and still in use, in wide use.
Well, what's fascinating about this trail you took is that, I mean, let's be honest, most of the sports naming rights that have been sold or exchanged in the last several years have been for companies that we weren't that familiar with and whose products were more 21st century, whether it would be investments or investment banking or in the case of LA, crypto. Most of them are fairly new or either fairly young companies or fairly newly renamed companies, like Acrisure in Pittsburgh took over for Heinz Ketchup and Heinz Pickles and all that. So it's interesting that something that would be as classic as that would be the name of a new, and it's not a new arena, but would be the new name of an established arena. I love it. I think that's really cool.
I do too. And especially the name, how well it just boom goes right with it. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Few things to talk about today. I mean, IU men's soccer schedule was released a day or so ago, and I was looking through it, and I'm like, oh wow, we're adding some powerful teams to the league now, and where the league itself has been competitive, but it belongs to the ACC or the East Coast. The sport does, or it has. It's just been one of those things that I think it's because it started there. As far as the indoctrination into the United States, East Coast schools were more accepting of soccer back in the day, and it took a lot longer for it to develop into the Midwest. But you're adding UCLA and Oregon and Washington, and I'm like, all right, now I'm wondering, can the Big Ten kind of start to challenge the ACC in that regard? Because it's kind of been Indiana and some others along the way. But the ACC is much deeper than that.
Yeah, I mean, well, you have to remember Maryland has had some really significant teams over the years and produced some really significant players. Zach Steffen, who has been the U.S. men's national team goalkeeper, not currently, but for a long period of time was a Maryland product. Maurice Edu, who was a great midfielder for Rangers in Scotland, for multiple MLS teams, Philadelphia, and who played for the World Cup and scored a goal in the World Cup that got disallowed and would have made a big difference for the U.S. if it hadn't been ruled out for a phantom foul. Another Maryland product. So they've been very good. UCLA has been an excellent program over the years in men's soccer. Produced some terrific players going all the way back to Alex Yee, the defender, who became an early MLS fixture, and They've had some very good players as well. So I think that and Michigan is another program that shouldn't be overlooked. It's had some very successful teams over the years, maybe not quite to IU's level, but been highly competitive within the league. I think that in order to challenge the ACC, it really comes down to want to. I mean, when you see what Pitt has done in the ACC, Pitt entered from the Big East, hadn't been significant in men's soccer at all. Hires a great coach, invests in their facility, invests in the program so that they could go out and recruit internationally. You do have to be able to recruit internationally to be successful in men's soccer. I don't think there's much question about that. You don't have to have all international players. I'm not saying that, but you do have to be able to recruit internationally. Almost like you can be Purdue and only take one guy from the transfer portal, but you still need that one guy. So that's something that the teams like Clemson, Wake Forest, and now Pitt have been very successful at over the years. And Duke has been great at that as well. Carolina at times. And so if you want to challenge them, it really comes down in a sport like men's soccer, it really comes down to want to. How much do we want it? And therefore, how much do we invest in it? And how much attention do we pay to it? Like I said, partly in hiring the best coaches, and then also in making sure the facilities are up to the level where someone coming in from having been in an academy in, let's say, the Netherlands, and maybe just didn't quite make the cut for Ajax or PSV Eindhoven or someone like that, and wants to continue playing and wants to use college soccer to be educated, as well as to perhaps move forward in the game. You have to be able to appeal to that athlete by showing him that they're going to come here and it's not going to be, leaking showers and rusted lockers, etc. Now, obviously, we're not going to see much of that at the Big Ten, but you're not going to see any of that at the Big Ten level. But you're going to want to be able to impress them in the way that you can. I'm sure that Clemson and Wake in particular are managing to do that.
Yeah, and it's going to just add to the excitement, I think, for all the way around, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, the one thing I would love to see, Jim, and the coach at Maryland several years ago, within the last half dozen years, argued for this, and I don't know why it didn't get any traction. He argued for a two-semester season, that stuffing it all into the fall and trying to get it off the stage, so to speak, before basketball starts or whatever, it's not the best thing for the soccer athlete, the men's soccer athlete or the women's soccer athlete.
No, the finals are always when it's cold outside someplace, it seems.
Yeah, exactly. Now they could take it to Florida, and they have, or take it to North Carolina and usually get a decent weather. It's really not about that, though. It's about extending the season so that they can get some room to breathe, so they can get more games. Hey, if baseball can play 50, 60 games, why can't men's and women's soccer become two-semester sports? I was very disappointed the NCAA chose not to entertain that. The one thing they can do right now, Jim, at the NCAA, they can't stop you from breaking what used to be the rules, but they can make the sports as palatable and as worthwhile as possible for the athletes competing in them. And that is not happening in men's and women's soccer at the NCAA level right now. Still good for the athlete. We've seen great players come out of the women's soccer, NCAA women's soccer, that really helped the national teams. But not everybody's playing now because professional soccer is more inviting, and you need to be able to show that you're doing the best, not just for them educationally and financially with NIL, but also athletically. And I don't believe that in any way that men's and women's soccer at the NCAA level are doing the best they can as a result of that arcane policy.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of policies they have that are arcane. That's the only ones that they can get approved because they're already approved.
But like
they
I
lose
said, this
everything
one's
else.
one they can do because it's not no one's going to go to court and say we want to play fewer games. It's that simple. So let's do something good like that.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Something else out major, and it's kind of don't want to call it a breaking story, but it basically is a breaking story, and that is how revenue sharing, in essence, for college athletes, and the potential of that, how the powers that be at the collegiate level are in deep talks right now with either a model or making that happen in one way or another. I guess that is something that was it was going to happen at some point. So they figured for once, maybe we should get out in front of this instead of being behind it and having nothing go their way. And this is going to be interesting to see how far it goes. Does it cover all sports? How are you going to divvy up if it does, covering a sport that gets no revenue, that brings in zero revenue? So it's just going to be interesting to see how this all goes.
Yeah, Jim, I agree with that. And that's one of the reasons why I don't think you can be in as deep a talks as you want. But I don't think that means that, like, it's not like you're sitting there with your wife over the kitchen table negotiating over who goes to the grocery store. And then by the time you stand up, somebody's in the car and on their way. I mean, it's a very complicated process, and it will take, I believe, a very long time to work it out, because not only do you have to get agreement from everybody that wants on board, and of course, those are individual discussions that are going to have to take place on every college campus across the country. Who wants to be in? That's first. And then once you do that, you say, okay, like you said, who's in? Like, who gets to be an employee? You talk about zero revenue sports. I don't think that there are a lot of people out there watching college rifle. Am I wrong? Do you think I'm wrong about that?
You went further in than I think you have to go.
But they're like, I mean, of all the sports, right? Like there's a lot of people that love to watch wrestling, and there are a lot of people that love to watch college baseball and softball. And there are a lot. We've just had a long conversation about college soccer. There are fans of all those sports. I've seen, I mean, you're not Final Four level crowds, but significant crowds at all those kinds of sports. I haven't seen very many people watching rifle. And so you start there at a sport that is participatory much more than it is a spectator sport, and go from there. So is the rifle person an employee? I don't know. That's what I've been saying all along. Where do we draw this line? Jim, I think we talked about this when Dartmouth, when their men's basketball team went to the NLRB to be certified as employees. They were averaging 670 people per home game. And we know that you can walk 5 miles in any direction in the state of Indiana and find a high school where they're drawing more than 670 fans a game. So what is a pro? What is an employee? What is where do you draw that line? And I don't know where you draw that line. And that's why I'm saying that I think that line is going to be much more difficult to establish, because let's say you draw the line right where I said, right there at rifle, because nobody's watching rifle. You think there isn't going to be somebody in the rifle community or some of the rifle athletes aren't suing to say, hey, we're employees too. So I think it's a very complex process, and as advanced as these talks may be, I'm not convinced it's happening soon. I think it's going to take a while. I think it will happen, but I don't think the word imminent enters the conversation.
It will be another reason for students to get out and protest. There'll be something else to protest about. A question that comes up: women's basketball, that has been on the talk of the town. But overall, like let's say Indiana women's basketball, to my knowledge, that program loses money overall. It's not a moneymaker. It does not pay for itself. And I know that they drew gigantic numbers for the NCAA championship, but part of that was Caitlin Clark. Part of that was the excitement that she had brought. Not that women's basketball has not escalated. It has, and the popularity. But it is across the board. It's not like people think. It's there are certain places that it's gigantic and you get these big bounces. But as the water levels out, it's not as that pool's not as deep as people think that it is. And it's not bringing in as much money as people might think that it is. So that's another situation. Even something as a sport as popular as women's basketball. How are you going to delineate that?
Well, Jim, there are football programs that lose money. I without a doubt,
a lot of them, a lot.
And I'm not talking about like a Division II or Division III. I'm talking about at the FBS level. And some of that is accounting.
Well, I'm talking about with TV money, including TV money.
But even some people lose money on football just because of the way they do the accounting. But a lot of FBS programs are losing money. So
especially the ones that pay coaches that are no longer there, and they're going to pay them for the next 10 years.
Yes, hard to make a lot of money when you're paying a guy $75 million to not coach. But I think that these are all complex conversations. That not every division in every company makes money, and that's a fact. Not every business makes money, and a lot of businesses last a long time without making money. So it's not forever, but for a long time. So it's a very complex issue. That's what I said, that, they may be in in-depth talks, but I'm not convinced that means that in this 26-27 season, we're going to have a bunch of pros playing on behalf of the colleges. They may be de facto pros based on how much money they're making, name, image, and likeness, et cetera. But actual, we work for you pros, I still think that's going to be a ways off. I just think the issues are so complicated. They may get even to a settlement in this, but the implementation will take a very long time.
We've got to take a break. The great Mike DeCourcy is with us, brought to you by Chop Shop Market and Table, home of Indiana basketball, football, and basketball coaches shows, located just north of Bloomington High School South on South Walnut. It's your local meat shop, steakhouse, caterer, no matter where you live. Chop Shop Market and Table offers a great sit-down dining experience for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, where you can even pick out your own steak from the on-site butcher or choose from their incredible daily dinner specials. Chop Shop Butcher Shop offers quality meats like locally sourced Wagyu steaks, seafood, and more. And do not miss out on Chop Shop's daily in-house made bakery items, cakes, pies, and pastries. I was just in there the other day, got my handy little bag over there to carry the food home with it. But we've got more here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Mike DeCourcy right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home, was trying to look up that text I sent last night. Oh, yeah.
All right, here we go.
For Honda in Bloomington. Right now, get a brand new Honda with no payments for 90 days. That's right, 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday after a nice soaker last night that was enjoyable. If you got to just sit back and enjoy listening to that, brought to you, of course, by Freethink. Whether it's 24 t-shirts for the upcoming family reunion or 200 for the summer's softball league, Freethink Apparel meets your printing needs. A team of industry experts will work with you to design a professional-looking sales-generating web store for your custom-designed apparel or promotional merchandise. From large corporations to small businesses, high school sports teams, national accounts, Freethink Apparel delivers no matter where you are. Visit freethinkapparel.com today and get printing. Welcome back, Mike DeCourcy. And also yesterday, Mike, it came out that back months ago when there was a multitude of players from the state of Iowa. How it all happened to be in Iowa, I don't know. But Iowa State players, Iowa players got busted for gambling on sports. And now it turns out how that went down may not have all been within the confines of the law, so to speak. And charges are being recommended to be dropped against the Iowa State players. I haven't seen anything regarding the Iowa players yet, but now, and there's a big lawsuit amongst all of those that were affected. So this is going to end up slapping back at the entities that laid down the law, so to speak.
Maybe. I mean, it's a lawsuit. Lots of lawsuits are unsuccessful. And lots
That's why we have Mike DeCourcy. Maybe.
Yes. I mean, you just don't know.
That's right.
The commissioner in charge of that particular agency in March defended the activities of the agency that helped investigate these alleged violations. So that's what the courts will determine, whether or not what happened in this case was legal and allowed, permissible. But one thing I'll say is that if your approach is, you shouldn't have known what I did, I'm not really in your camp, you know?
Yeah. That's pretty good. And so now, though, the concern that I would think of immediately is, oh man, what happens now? Have they quickly regrouped, and so they're still in a position to police that? Because it's something that needs policing. Don't get me wrong. That's the last thing we want is a renegade bunch of gamblers out there.
Yeah, I think this brings us back full circle, Jim, to where we started, which was that employer-employee thing. I can guarantee you that if we get there imminently, as I as I said before, we wouldn't. But if we did, I can guarantee you, with everything I own, that don't anybody take that literally. I can guarantee you that that there will be a clause in whatever collective bargaining agreement is assigned that permits either law enforcement or an agency of the NCAA, presumably whoever would be governing college athletics, or perhaps the individual schools where these athletes would be employed, to use whatever technology is out there to assure that their athletes are not violating gambling rules. That's how we saw a year ago multiple athletes at the NFL level suspended for in some cases where they gambled, and not necessarily gambling or gambling in ways that would be problematic for their sport, but they are not permitted to gamble. At least a year ago, I don't think this has changed, but a year ago they were not permitted to gamble on company property, and that included practice facility, stadium, and in that case, team hotel. And that's where several of them developed problems because they didn't pay attention enough to when they had their gambling walkthrough about what they weren't allowed to do, or they didn't read the fine print in their CBA or whatever, and they thought they were okay to do that, and they wound up in trouble. And in that case, the way they were caught was because they had consented to some sort of technology that could make sure that they weren't engaging in those activities in those places. So that's what would happen in the future relative to college athletes. One of the things that has been backward about the way American sports have handled gambling for most of my lifetime until the last 3 or 4 years. One of the most backward things is that there's been a total absence of understanding that the best friend of the integrity of the sport, the best friend, is legalized gambling. Because for the NFL, the entity that has the greatest investment in the integrity of NFL sport, of the NFL competition, is the NFL. Teams, league, coaches, administrators, players, they have the greatest investment in that integrity. But the second greatest investment is the legal book, because they don't want to be paying people for bets that were illicit, for bettors who cheated. They don't want to pay that bet. So they are expert at making sure that the competition is clean. And that's something that has been, if you watch, there's a terrific documentary about the Arizona State gambling scandal of the 90s, men's basketball, an excellent documentary. I wish I could remember who put it together. One of the streaming services. It might have been Netflix, not sure, but it's terrific. And it explains to you how the legal books in Vegas ferreted that out, found out what was happening, figured it out because of the betting patterns. They get it. So that's what we see now in sports in the states that have approved it. And every state, honestly, by now should have legalized sports betting. Are there victims of it? Sure. But that's true of pretty much, there are victims of just about anything that you can do for pleasure. You can do too much for pleasure. And so I believe really, really fiercely that the states that haven't approved it yet are way behind the curve. There's no excuse to not have approved it by now.
Yeah, I agree. Also coming out today, Zach Osterman broke the story that Indiana is looking at basically has a 10-year extension with Adidas coming up, and which is I don't care if you're a Nike person, Adidas person, whatever. This is probably a good deal for Indiana, because Indiana is a much bigger fish in a smaller pond being with Adidas than they would be with Nike. Although if Nike could pay them more, who knows? I don't know. But Adidas does. I mean, their big brands are Kansas, Indiana, Louisville, and it's they're not in that same group with Nike. Nike is just a behemoth,
right?
So it probably behooves that gives you some kind of cachet or power of some sort, I would imagine.
Well, one thing I will say, Jim, is I don't think that hurts to have that, but I think that I'm not as deeply involved in the recruiting space as I was 10 years ago. But I will say that observationally, it appears that while the shoe company allegiance is not non-existent, it is not the factor that it was 10 years ago because of name, image, and likeness. Because now, I mean, loyalty, allegiance are not big words for the college athlete. I'm not decrying anything. I'm not, but I am saying that the level of movement we see now, even among successful athletes, is evidence that the first thing that comes into play is immediate financial reward. That's for those who are transferring, and that's a large number. Like I said, not just of the guys who didn't get any run, which was where we were 5 years ago. If you looked at like when Jeff Goodman from Stadium would compile one of his transfer lists, and then you looked at the transfer list and you'd recognize 7 names, like you wouldn't know anybody. Even though there were 1,000 people or 800 people on that list, you'd barely know anybody because they weren't getting any run. Guys transferred then because they couldn't get on the floor. They were averaging 1.5, 2 points. I did the numbers on it once, and the median point average probably around 2019 for those who were transferring. And they're, like I said, as much we see the numbers what they are now with name, image, and likeness, they were only about half, but that's still a big number 5 years ago. And the median was less than 5 points a game. It just weren't. Nobody was transferring hardly at all, unless they had a significant problem with where they were with the coach or academic circumstance or home sickness or those sorts of things. There was almost nobody who was transferring was a successful player. Now we see these players transferring. Even like Aiden Mahaney transfers to UConn from St. Mary's. Aiden Mahaney grew up like a 3-minute walk or whatever. I may be exaggerating, from the St. Mary's campus. I mean, St. Mary's was his home school, but UConn offers such a great opportunity in terms of immediate financial reward, the opportunity to play in a program that's going to be on national television constantly. Every game just about that UConn plays will be on national television. And they've shown that they know the direction. They have the route carved out to the Final Four. So that becomes appealing. So I don't think the Nike Adidas dynamic is quite as emphatic in the recruiting space as it was. So I don't think it's problematic for Indiana to be there. I think it's much more important that they are valued by the brand and that they are valued by the brand in terms of how they're compensated.
Saw that Dusty May landed a big one as he gets his big man, Golden, out of the NBA draft, and he'll be joining him at Michigan. So I was wondering why John L. Davis, I don't know, maybe it's I know it's harder to get in there if there's a reason that he's still in the portal, but getting Golden, it gives him a big man, it gives him someone he's accustomed to, so that'll give him a nice kick start there at Michigan.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's a solid, stable, big guy you can run your offense through, who can stand up to the now that Zach Edey's gone, to the vast majority of Big Ten big men, if not all of them. You don't have to worry about him. So can he bang with Umar Ballo? I think Ballo's a better player, but I think Golden can give Michigan somebody that won't give a lot of ground in that matchup. And so it's a great get for the Wolverines.
Absolutely. What's next for you, sir?
I have a column up right now about LeBron James. Did he play his last game last night?
I really wanted to bring that up, and man, we ran out of time. But
yeah, but
you can go to Mike's column instead. That's purposely.
Yes, at TSN Mike, it talks about why LeBron is the unappreciated. I don't think we've had ever in my lifetime an athlete this great that is this degree of unappreciated. And so I wrote about that.
Yeah, I see that. I was wondering, they've lost their last 2 series, 8-1 to Denver. So we'll see. I know he'd love to play with his son. His son's not quite NBA ready, so maybe those things just don't align. But yeah, make sure you go to
LeBron. He's ready to walk right in the starting lineup, but
yeah,
I don't think LeBron is an impartial judge there.
The starting lineup of San Jacinto Junior College, maybe. No, just kidding. Mike DeCourcy, make sure you go to @TSN Mike and on Twitter and give him a follow and get to that current article out right now. I'm sure that's a great one. We've got more coming up. Thank you, Mike. We appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Jim.
You betcha. Of course, brought to you by Cheryl Sizemore, Remax Realty. For those in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. We're back with more here on The Beat right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
All right, I've got more from Braylon Mullins, Malachi Moreno, and Trent Sisley.
Well, that's why I said that, to give you time to start working on that, because I'm like, you know what? We're going to need that.
Be either good, do some or all of them here, or even in the segment after Chronic. Just depends on what you want to do. Man, I am tired. I did not sleep well last night. I don't know why. It's one of those nights.
Another late night for me. I sat right here until 10 p.m. Man, that picture must have been taken in the dark. What the hell was I looking for? Damn it. Turn the oops, wrong one. Phil Simms, Boomer Esiason out at CBS's pregame show.
Oh, wow. All right, here we go. Time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf Community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Rebesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back on this Tuesday. Indiana Sports Beat Radio brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East over off of College Mall Road. Full of an array of custom Stroms, pizzas, baked wings, mac bowls, fresh salads, and so much more. You can dine in, carry out, or have Hank cater your next event. Hoosier Hanks East is a great place to watch the games or gather with the team after the game, and you can use their exclusive party room for your next gathering. Order online at HoosierHanks.com or visit at 1285 South College Mall Road. I like. Am I one of the only ones that likes pizza in the morning with a fried egg on top of it?
That is I feel like it's very unique. Maybe it's not as unique as I think it is, but I've never heard of somebody doing that.
Oh, it's not that unique, but it's probably unique to a degree.
Yeah. Pizza with an egg on top.
Oh, it's delicious. I mean, absolutely. But you also have to reheat the pizza correctly by either having an air fryer or doing the old-fashioned method that I used by putting it in the microwave first to heat up all the top stuff, that's what it does. And you have to have a skillet on the side and ready to go and put it right in the skillet. And you get that perfectly crispy bottom. And that's only for thin crust. I don't deal with hand tossed or thick crust or all that other crap. I don't want all that dough.
Dough, baby, dough.
There you go. Tana says it's a Minnesota thing. Huh. Well, I've been to Minnesota.
Pete would know, wouldn't he? Ask Mr. Pete. He lived in Minnesota.
But Five doesn't like it. Dude, it's delicious. I'm telling you. You got to try it. Philip says breakfast pizza with eggs and bacon on it. Yeah, that's not bad. But I don't. Yeah, I'm not out on the bacon. Straight talk with Jack Graham says he lived next to LeBron when he lived in Bath, Ohio. He was a kid back then and was a good guy in the neighborhood. Success has changed him. Yeah, that could happen to a lot of people. But what Pete, who's Pete Russell says, man, if you don't know Pete, you got to start following us more. Justin says biscuit crust, gravy sauce, bacon, eggs, sausage, and mozzarella cheddar. Oh, we're going to go on Robert says he finds anything with a fried runny egg on it disgusting. Absolutely not, man. I guess it's all what you like, but I love a good old-fashioned fried egg. Whew. Takes me back to when you're a kid and your mom didn't know that much about cooking. She didn't think outside of the box. Things were made just one way. Cheryl says she has heard that he is very nice and generous, which is awesome. She's talking about LeBron. Russell asks, is Pete chronic Hoosier? Nope, he is not. I love the continued mystery that surrounds that people are jumping about. He'll be on with us today, by the way, here in a little while. So, something I was thinking about. I saw someone comment that they wish nothing but the worst for Liam McNeely. Why? Why are some people so stinking petty? Why you give a crap? And why would you say something like that? I think that is petty, immature, idiotic, and a whole bunch of other things. I'm just not. I know I look at it differently. I don't view it from a fan's viewpoint, but I just think it's ridiculous. It's the same with the Kelvin Sampson thing. I'm like, you can look at it two ways. It was a stupid ass rule that was so stupid that it was changed the next year. He was doing so much less than other teams like Duke and Kansas and those programs that were cheating their asses off. But everybody wants to hate on somebody. And it's like, you need to go to the genesis of where your feelings truly come from. And I assure you, it was not there. You need to go back a little further, but that's a whole nother deal. So we shall see how that rolls. What else was I going to talk about? Purdue basketball in the portal. That's going to be a reckoning. I really believe for Matt Painter. This bringing in 6 kids in a recruiting class, that is going to be that's going to cause a problem. And I had a couple of Purdue fans reach out on comments on the show and want to say that Mason Gillis specifically, they forget about Ethan Morton, but that Mason Gillis was not run off. Well, the hell he wasn't. Yes, he was. And do you know why? Because they're still oversigned by 1. That means yet another Purdue scholarship player is going to have to leave that team or give up his scholarship. So, and,
real quick, by the way, they're going to have to enter before the end of the day too, right?
Well, I don't know. That means I don't know if they're going to enter the transfer portal or just give up their scholarship.
Yeah, and who would even be on the chopping block for that?
Yeah, you go down to the bottom of the roster there, and you'll find I think there's a guy specifically. I don't want to throw out names and saying someone deserves to lose their scholarship or something like that. But
the thing about it like this, if they're happy with whatever their NIL amount might be, maybe they feel like they don't need the scholarship and they just don't want to play for anybody other than Purdue. I doubt that's the case, but that could be potential. I
doubt that's the case as well. Pete says the only chronic he is, according to his wife, is a chronic pain in the you know what. Purdue still wants scholarship over for next year. That's what I was talking about. And so then, they're recruiting. How many guys do they leave? And how many guys do they lose next season? They can't have a ton of seniors on that roster. All those guys, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman, Wren, Caleb First, those guys are not going to be seniors next year. They'll be juniors. So how much room are they going to have the following season to bring in recruits? And, they're recruiting Jalen Harrelson and Trent Sisley, and I don't even know who else. But so it's a tricky thing. That 6-man class is going to. Why would you run off Mason Gillis? That just blows my mind. He hit more 3-point shots last year than Braden Smith did. Braden Smith. So it's become a real management deal. And it's going to get less and less fun for certain coaches that are not there just yet. So Philip says Purdue could have one of the freshmen reclassified to next year, take a prep school year. Well, we'll see how all that goes. But just a thought on that. On for Indiana, however, the let's see. Getting before I get up that, Jeff says he can't understand why Jim's so focused on the rule violation and not the big picture of Sampson's fiasco with the team. Well, because one is a proven fact, and the second one is not. Lots of chatter of this and that of what went on, but because that's the reason that he was fired. That's what I'm talking about. So that's why, Jeff. But Indiana's issue next year is going to be finding minutes for guys. And that's a great problem to have, because last season for the Hoosiers, they didn't have the players for the minutes. And I was laughing a bit last night watching the Lakers game, because you got a 1,000-year-old LeBron out there playing 38, 40 minutes, but yet for a while early on last season, Indiana didn't have college 18, 19-year-olds that could play 38 minutes in a game. So just how I amuse myself sometimes. Hey, we got to take a break. Up next, Chronic Hoosier. We'll continue that conversation because, like I said, it's a great problem for a program to have. But coming up next, here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio, Chronic Hoosier joins us. We're brought to you by the Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Maria Island, Florida. If you're already in the area or will be, the Ugly Grouper has much, much, much more than unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. Ugly Grouper is family friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Tell them we sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. We're back right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Good day, sir.
What's going on?
Oh, you know it, man. You know it. Just another, as you would say, another day in paradise.
It is.
Yeah, I'm tired. I wish I could just go into hibernation.
Give it a couple of days. We're about ready to make the switch.
Ooh, I've got to. Yeah, that's not going to alleviate my days, unfortunately, for a few more 5-6 weeks.
No, but at least you get to move around a little freer.
4, 5, 6. I got 6 more weeks.
Oh, that means you saw your shadow, right? You're like the ground.
Yeah. I saw it as I was falling back into bed last night, I think.
Well, at least today the football portal closes.
Oh, not the basketball portal? It's just the football one?
I think it's everything.
Is it all the portaling?
I thought it was all of it.
It's about
Let me take a look real quick.
It's closing time.
Yeah, so it's both football and basketball.
And the close of the COVID year.
Yes, that's the biggest thing. Oh my gosh, that is going to be a great thing to see.
There's so much chaos. They really, I understand that they're still struggling. I saw yesterday there's talks of a settlement in some of these lawsuits that'll probably end up naming athletes employees and allowing them to contract and put some constraints on some of the movement. But God, they have got to find a system that makes it functional for everybody. I don't understand how you run a program right now when, you've made it to this point, you have your spring game, you think you're set, the cupboards are pretty much bare, and now you still got guys jumping off ship.
Yeah, especially football teams, man, you just went through spring practice or you're in the middle of spring practice, and the next thing you know, your quarterback's in the portal.
Yeah.
Here we go. 10 seconds, guys.
For
That's
36
chaos.
months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Of course, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda and Boost Fundraising. If you know anyone or group that needs a fundraiser, Boost Fundraising does it easier, better than anyone, raising more money faster. Your team receives personalized fundraising packages for each team member. Free team branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Just go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, C-O-Y-L-E. And it looks like there's a period after each one of those. I bet they did that just to slip a few discounts by you. But we'll have to slap some hands over that. Welcome in, Chronic Hoosier. And Chronic, we were just talking in the break about the talks that are being engaged in right now to reach a legal settlement that would lay out the framework for revenue sharing with athletes in a future NCAA business model, and that is per ESPN. Is that just something that is imminent and that has to happen to put some guardrails on college athletics right now? Because it is the wild, wild west with virtually no restraints. I mean, there is little to nothing that can be done. We're seeing right now that all the people that were charged with gambling out in Iowa last year, not only was there a big snag hit in that, now they're being sued over it. So that's coming back to bite them. But this would be a way. Is this a way to actually be contractual in a way with some of these athletes?
I think it's the only way. And I think that's what the NCAA has discovered. And when we say the NCAA, let's be honest, we're talking about the schools, the member institutions that comprise the body. The NCAA is pretty much just the shell that they use as the shield to hide their terrible decisions. But no, this is what has been the biggest obstacle so far, and the biggest cause of all the lawsuits they've lost, is they have placed restrictions on student athletes that don't apply to any other student at the universities, that the courts have deemed to be anti-competitive, and they continue to lose case after case because of the restrictions that are only applied to these athletes. And the watershed moment is going to be when they stop calling them amateur student athletes and start addressing them by what's probably a proper legal moniker, which is employees. The NIL system, while it has allowed the athletes to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness, the schools have basically offloaded or outsourced the payment side of it. And by deeming them employees, it allows them to bring that process in-house, direct payment to the players, true pay-for-play model. But as employees, you then have the freedom to contract with your employees, no different than we do in almost every other business setting. And the parties are free to contract whatever they choose within certain parameters. But that's the beginning point. And then from there, I think you'll see there's going to be some collective bargaining, which is what happens when you have labor. They have issues they're going to push, and they're going to band together, if not unionize, and continue to push for more and more. And that's part of the process. We see it happening for centuries now in all other industries, and And the modern reality has probably caught up with the game, where this is the only other option they have in order to kind of contain and corral some of the chaos that they've unleashed by, through their insistence on not calling the spade the spade. So I think that'll be a first step. I think once you see that, you'll be able to see, commitments, restrictions, a lot of the stuff that the schools had enjoyed previously can be contracted back into the relationship now, and if nothing else, just provide a clearly articulated list of rights and responsibilities of the parties, where everybody kind of knows what's up. And this Wild West, world that college athletics has become, hopefully gets a little less wild and a little bit more tame. Because as today's the close of the portal, I can't fathom what it's like to be a coach or an assistant, position coach, whatever, coordinators, with the free flowing nature of rosters today. You've got teams like IU that have already played their spring game. They've gone through spring camp. They're getting ready to head into summer workouts, and you've still got departures. Now you still got to go do some.
You're probably number one
cornerback.
defensive back.
Yeah, it's just chaos, and as frustrating as it must be, they have to understand too that's a product of their own making, by their insistence on their failed position to keep the status quo. And I think with the House settlement, you'll probably see a return to something that's more familiar, and whether it be a minimum 2-year commitment to a program, or else you have to sit out before transferring. Pay scales. It's going to be fascinating to see what changes come from it. But I think it's a step in the right direction, a step towards bringing some sanity back. But as is the case with a lot of law, if nothing else, clarity and foreseeability. Markets love predictability. It allows you to operate with with some certainty in your decision making. And right now, there's none of that. So hopefully things get a little bit more civil and a little bit fairer for all of the parties, because I think that's been the underlying struggle throughout. Is the system as currently constructed hasn't always been fair to all the parties, primarily the students. But now you've got staffs with legitimate, just mind-numbing decisions and changes that are constantly coming at them, that's just made it extraordinarily difficult to operate in this environment. So hopefully this is the beginning of a better future. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be the future that everybody wants to see when it's all said and done. I would not be surprised by the time this is all said and done if the revenue sports at least don't basically disassociate from the universities, other than in name and images and branding, and just basically license out the logo and the name and the stadiums, and just drop the facade of academics altogether. Now, that's not to say that some kids won't be able to go earn a degree, but for years, college athletics has been a subsidized minor leagues for both basketball and football. And while all the other leagues have figured out how to do that under their own business model, I would not be surprised if you see the revenue sports, football and basketball particularly, trend in that direction over time here. And who knows what that becomes. Then you start getting into some of the issues with the pro sports, where they're constantly shopping for better deals from their municipalities, their local hosts, whether it be for stadiums or whatever rights. And that's one of the things that's always been nice about college athletics is Indiana University ain't just packing up and going somewhere that wants to build them a shinier new stadium. But I think you're going to see it continue to track closer and closer to pro sports.
I agree, but at this point, it has to in some degrees, because there has just been no control, because the NCAA has had no control. They've lost all control. Everything they would do, they would lose in court, because it's like they just, hey, we're going to do this, and no one checked the legalities of it or challenged the legalities of it until they were, and then they lost. And now there are almost no rules as far as transferring. Do whatever you wish, which that is not a sustainable model in any stretch of the imagination. Just the cost to replacing players that you did not expect to lose has to be an ungodly amount of money, especially in totality. The billions and billions of dollars I bet it has added up to, if you take all the universities, just for that issue alone.
Yeah, and look at what pro sports have done. Ownership groups decided, leagues decided that they needed to implement cost controls, so they instituted salary caps and taxes and all the other fee structures that keep it workable within what the corporate management is comfortable doing. And I think that's likely something that follows soon after you allow direct payments from schools to the athletes. Is we have to ascertain what a fair market value is, and try to find some semblance of sanity in the process. Because right now, value is basically whatever your biggest booster feels like he wants to spend in order to watch a winning program. And among other things, there's certainly a vanity element to that as well. But it's been purely chaotic when it's just become pure unabashed capitalism, which isn't always a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm a free market guy through and through. It's just really difficult to comprehend, the 13th man on the bench who's pulling in $500,000 a year, just because, you've got a war chest that says we can spend that on that guy. And that's where the market currently is now. I wouldn't be surprised if once things get brought back in-house and allow for direct payment, that you don't see a recalibration of value in that regard. Because let's be honest, the 13th guy on most benches is not a $500,000 man anywhere in the country, and maybe shouldn't be anywhere. But at the end of the day, the market will figure that out. But when everybody's playing on a level playing field by rules that are mutually agreed upon and negotiated and exchanged for, then I think you start to see a clearer picture of what the future is going to hold.
And that brings up the possibility, or will there be the possibility, if they were able to go that route, of having that type of relationship, an employee relationship, will there be the possibility of having salary caps of some sort to limit to try to equalize things, which is exactly what the pro sports levels do. They try to equalize it as best they can. You're not going to be able to equalize New York and Oakland, but they have the ability to spend so much. But is there you think there will be any kind of control that way?
I don't think there's any way around it, honestly. I think just from a competitive balance standpoint, I think it's going to be imperative that they do, because otherwise you're going to continue to have the same system that we've always had, whether it was illicit or expressly endorsed, where you have a different tier based off your booster class. And they have figured out in most pro sports that's not desirable. We'll see if college has the same sanity in that regard. But again, that's going to be something that has to be bargained for. And once you acknowledge the athletes are employees, they have the rights to organize, they have the right to unionize, they have the right to push for what they feel like is a fair deal, and the schools are going to have to be on board with it. It's a two-way street once you get to that point, but at least everybody's has a seat at the table, the opportunity for the voices to be heard. And, ultimately the market's going to figure out where those price points probably should be set.
And speaking of which, Indiana just Zach Osterman reporting that about to go into another 10-year deal with Adidas. I wonder if they built in some NIL funds into that. I would not be shocked, though, if they did not incorporate some kind of language that says you've got to support, or we need you to support X number of athletes through NIL in this sport, that sport, whatever, however it goes, some form or fashion. Is that something you think went into this or might have gone into this?
I think this is a fascinating deal. I'll be really interested to see the language when it comes out in the specific terms. what really caught my eye when I saw that report this morning is the duration of the contract. Um, this is one another contract cycle where Indiana is at the table with diminished leverage based off of the the recent success of football, or the lack thereof success with football and basketball. It seems like whenever this contract comes up, Indiana's typically at in a trough competitively, or a nadir. But that being said, I think it's fascinating, in as much as with all the changes currently taking place. I think one of the things that you will continue to see increasingly, the shoe companies no longer need the schools to access the athletes. And short of the sideline agreements and what all constraints those may place, athletes are free to contract with whomever they want to now, so long as it doesn't violate, pre-existing team contracts. So uh, the flip side of that coin is the shoe companies who have, let's be honest, they have basically bankrolled both college athletics as well as the AAU circuit for decades now, simply so that they could have access to the talent in the event that they reach the pro levels, they could then sponsor and use as endorsers. Now they can do that directly without having to go through the school. So I think you will probably see increasingly over time less and less investment in the sideline contracts with the universities, and more direct investment in the athletes. So being able to lock up whatever terms they've achieved in this agreement for a decade now kind of insulates them from some of that coming in down the road, because I think you'll probably see that industry moving more in the direct compensation direction rather than spreading it across the teams. And that's not to say that universities still aren't going to look for sideline partners, because schools ain't trying to buy their own shoes and jerseys and warm-ups and everything else. That's a very significant part of the compensation package. But as far as the dollars that it puts directly into the school coffers, I think you're going to see those numbers diminishing significantly over time, as the apparel companies go directly to the athletes, not having to use the schools. So, the devil's going to be in the details. The terms will be released at some point here in the future, it seems like. But for the time being, I think it's notable that Adidas continues to see value in Indiana amongst a shrinking stable, and sees fit to continue that partnership in spite of the lack of national prominence and on field success, at least as far as the main revenue sports. I do think it's going to be really interesting to see how they continue to invest in women's sports, because as anybody who's been to a women's basketball game over the last 10 years has seen, that is a rapidly growing market segment for them that I think will only continue to get better and bigger. And I think Indiana has been, pretty well positioned to help capitalize on that with the investments it's made in particularly women's basketball, but women's sports across the board. Make no mistake, I know there's a lot of teams that wear the Adidas, apparel that are specifically for that. I'm looking at soccer and what Coach Van Bennekom has done there. I think you're going to continue to see increasing investment in women's sports, in no small part because the apparel companies have a vested interest in growing that part of the business, and hopefully that raises the level of competitiveness and investment and resources spent on the women's teams. But I think at the end of the day, I know a lot of folks were interested in seeing a change, whether it be Nike or Jordan Brand or whomever. But you can only dance with the one that you went with. And, I don't know that Indiana had a lot of suitors beating their door down to take that business over at the moment, simply because Indiana hasn't proven to be an extraordinarily marketable brand. Now, that being said, there's a sleeping beast just waiting to be awoken. And we've seen it in years past when there's been a hint of success. IU has over a 750,000 living alumni, who, as you know full well, or anybody that's online knows, they tend to get a little excited when the Hoosiers are doing good. And they do that. They speak with their pocketbooks. So if you can give them something to cheer for, Indiana fans will absolutely buy your stuff that supports the program. So hopefully some success follows. But at the end of the day, it's the brand. It's probably going to continue to be gear that's that's difficult to come by simply because of the way Adidas is modeled and how they produce and distribute. But I just hope I can get some pants and some shirts and some hats that all match the same red, and we'll continue to hope it gets better.
Yeah, the one good thing for as far as Indiana goes and their marketing promotional partner is the fact that they're a big fish in a small pond. I mean, you like I mentioned this earlier, you got Indiana, Kansas, Louisville, but those are all three basketball schools. So I don't have a list of Adidas's big time partners. I don't know who their big time football partner is if they have one. But you look at Jordan Brand, for example. I don't know what their list is, but are they going for just big time partnerships? I know that Michigan is their provider is Jordan Brand, but man, 10 years you mentioned. Did Indiana just put themselves in the position of the ACC?
Well, the flip side is what happens if you do see some success? What if Coach Sig turns things around and gets IU, back into perennial bowl eligibility? What if Woody's able to get IU back in the upper echelon, Elite Eights, Final Fours, etc.? You're locked in at a low value because let's be honest.
That's what I mean. Are they the next ACC, which is what they have done to themselves?
It's hard to say, but you know what? I do think that you're going to see those contracts continuing to shrink over time, just based off all the other changes taking place in college. So it very well could be double-edged sword. I'm not sure which way it's going to swing, but it's one of those where I don't think Under Armour is really engaging in the market like they used to when it comes to college sponsorships. I think they got overextended and did not see near the returns that they had capitalized or that they had banked on. Nike is what Nike is, man. They're a behemoth. But there's something to be said to be one of the lead horses in a smaller stable. You tend to get a little bit more attention, and the fact that Adidas continues to prioritize Indiana with all the promotions. And I know a lot of folks don't really like it when they switch stuff up, whether it's the Fear of God collaborations, the Black History Month collaborations, what have you, the limited release shoes. But I do think it speaks volumes that Adidas continued to include Indiana in those programs, even when it didn't have success on par with what the benchmark was for those things. And I think that's a product of Indiana's buying power, of Indiana's strength in the market. And I think that gets significantly diluted if you were to switch to a partner like Nike, who actually has, Alabama's and Michigan's and Ohio State's, and just look regionally at some of their partners and the disparate success that Indiana enjoys compared to some of our neighbors. And it's real easy to see how you could end up being like a Purdue that's kind of an afterthought in their stable. Even at their best, there's very little being done that really sets them apart from the partnership level. So I think there's some value in that. And, at the end of the day, my soccer roots, I got to love the stripes, man. I don't get me wrong. I got J's for days, but I'm a three stripes guy at heart. So happy to see that partnership continue. Hope it continues to be fruitful, the university. And like I said, at the end of the day, I just hope I can get some cool drip, man.
Yeah, there you go. I was waiting for Russell. It's his birthday today, and he said it's my birthday. Can I ask a question? And I said go ahead. And so I haven't seen that pop up yet, so I have to wait to see if he comes up. But maybe not get it in here in time. He waited too long. I'm trying to stretch it out to see if he gets it in, but I guess not. So anything else pop this week that caught your attention?
I'll tell you what, man. I'm not gonna lie, Jim. My heart aches right now for what I've seen on campus over the course of the last week. It's a deeply troubling situation to see what's going on as it relates to free speech on campus here. And I'm not even trying to wade into the waters, the underlying issues, with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that's taken place there. What I do know, and I'll say this much, man, I've been in Bloomington for a long time. I I've stayed here for a reason. I absolutely love this town. I love its weirdness. I love its openness. I love its diversity. And, I have seen firsthand, not in the abstract, not in the headlines, but I've seen Jewish neighbors. I've seen Muslim neighbors. I've seen Asian neighbors. I've seen Black neighbors. I'm not talking people across town. I mean, people in my block, people next door to me who over the years have been targeted by actual hate groups, whether it be Nazis, actual Klansmen, hate churches, who have targeted these people for who they are, how they look, how they pray, what they believe. And I've never seen riot police dispersed. I've never seen snipers posted on the roof for any of that when there were actual threats, when there were actual violence taking place. And to see that happen following an overnight change by an ad hoc committee of a policy that has stood and balanced rights for over half a century throughout all sorts of conflict and tumult, that allowed our community to stay whole and allowed everybody to feel safe and free in their rights here. It's really unfortunate to see that disappear over the course of the last week. And again, I think every student, I think every community member has a right to feel safe here. And I think they still have a right to have their voices heard without oppression by any state actors. And I hope there's a lot of lessons that are taken from the events of the last week. And I hope there are some changes put in place so that we never go down this path again. Because like I said, we've never had to deploy the type of force that we saw used this week in light of actual harm, and for an event that as far as I'm aware, did not cause any actual harm. I understand tents and the policy and that. Let's be honest here. Last time I saw riot police and choppers in the air was 1990 in the Villas, and that was justifiable. There was reason that response was called in at that moment, because they had lost containment, and there was chaos, and there was crime, and there was definitely a need for the assertion of some controls. I don't know that we quite reached that level. I don't know that we sniffed the neighborhood of that level. But like I said, I hope people can do a hard look at what's happened and the responses that were made. And I have a feeling it will probably be the subject of some lawsuits and probably be the subject of some pretty sizable settlements as a result of those lawsuits. And I just hope that we never cross that bridge again, because it breaks my heart to see what's happened on my campus.
It has certainly been a wild couple of weeks, but hopefully things get settled down. Chronic, appreciate you, my friend, and I hope all is well, and we shall talk again next week.
We'll see you. It's going to be an awkward graduation. Cheers, grads. See you guys.
Reach out. Thank you, sir. Chronic Hoosier joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and we've got more coming up. Brought to you by Fresh Fork. For those of you that talk about a great deal, I got to get to my I lost it. My bad. Wasn't ready for that. But enjoy healthily, delicious meals at home without the hassle. Fresh Fork chef-curated, ready-made meals delivered right to your doorstep. Proudly fueling IU athletes, and now available to you with a menu that is always fresh and diverse. From hearty proteins to fresh salads, the Fresh Fork empowers you to make better food choices without compromising. Order online and let the Fresh Fork help transform your lifestyle for a healthier way of living today at thefreshforkonline.com. Use promo code radio20 and you get $20 off your order. And this is real fresh food, man. It's good stuff. More coming up here on The Beat right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Yeah, I can argue that argument both ways. But that's usually what I say about most things.
Yeah.
There's always three sides to every story.
That's true.
Students should absolutely be allowed to, protest and voice their concerns. But as long as they're students, number one.
Yeah.
But then you see things like you see on the campus at Columbia where they have taken over buildings.
Yep.
That's not cool, man. That ain't cool.
That's people who grew up watching and I say grew up,
60s.
It was only a few years ago. It's people who saw what happened in Minneapolis and even in Louisville during 2020 with all of those riots. And now they're old enough to do that crap on their own and they think it's okay. I'm not saying that's why they did it, but it wouldn't surprise me if that has anything to do with why people would think that's okay.
Well, either way, we ain't going political, people. So
I don't even think that's political. It's just an observation.
No, I wasn't talking to you. I'm actually talking to the commenters. This ain't a political show. Could you write on your whiteboard who the next two scholarship players will be at IU if they fill the positions? I will I'm not going to address that at the moment. FJB. I'm a middle of the road guy, man.
What's FJB mean? I keep seeing people say that. What does that mean? Without, if it's a bad word, you don't have to say it. But like,
I'm assuming I always assume they're confusing my last name.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. It's a joke.
Mm-hmm.
See if you insert C for B.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Totally kidding.
There, here we go.
I do
10
not
seconds.
know what that means either. Chop Shock Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday, brought to you by Bubba's 33 down in Clarksville for our Southern Indiana folks. Bubba's 33 offers a fun atmosphere and a full menu of delicious food made fresh every day from their signature ribeye, seasoned salmon, garlic knots, large salads, and so much more. Whether you're bringing the family, the team, or meeting friends in the bar, Bubba's 33 in Clarksville is the place to be. With over 50 big screen TVs, it is a tremendous place to watch the games. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville is right off of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back. Golly, I sat here after the show yesterday, worked until 10 o'clock last night. I put together a video reel that took me for freaking ever, John. Oh my God. Because
going back to your old days of some news package editing.
Oh my God. But it wasn't it was just all these different, I don't even know how many different clips I had to upload and put together into one. And it ends up being 4 whole minutes, but it takes you 4 stinking hours to do it.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. But oh well. But that's out, by the way, at the you can go to the YouTube channel right here if following and see that. Highlights from this past weekend of Indiana Elite and Braylon Mullins, Trent Sisley, and Malachi Moreno, 3 of Indiana's top targets, along with Jalen Harrelson, who was not there. He was in Memphis. But those three are three of Indiana's big-time targets that played over the weekend, and we have complete interviews with them talking about each one of them, their timeline. I know just offhand that Braylon Mullins, he's going to announce before his season starts. Not sure if that's going to be before school starts or not, and it's kind of the same with Trent. Malachi, I can't recall. They all have visits to other places. Trent Sisley is, besides Jalen Harrelson, who is the most highly sought player in the state, I would have to say, Jalen is probably second. Trent's probably second just by the sheer fact that Indiana is recruiting him, Purdue is recruiting him, Notre Dame is recruiting him, Iowa, Michigan State. And then Malachi Moreno has said that, in addition to visit Indiana, he's going to be going to Kentucky probably and visiting Arkansas as well, which makes sense. Can you see those three guys together? Possibly. But that also brings to mind Indiana is also recruiting Jalen Harrelson, who is the top get. Now, he will not be eligible for Mr. Basketball next year because he no longer plays in the IHSAA like Mullins, Sisley do. So those two guys will be in a deep battle for Mr. Basketball. That's going to be fun to watch in this upcoming season. And Brian, Jalen Harrelson's he's a badass. 6'7" point guard. Yeah, come on. So there's that. But you also you cannot add. I don't think that you can add a bunch of freshmen now. To me, 3 is the most you should add. Maybe 4. And I would say 4 if you're getting Jalen Harrelson and Braylon Mullins and Trent Sisley and Malachi Moreno, okay, that's 4 that I would take. But I don't think that you want to get into a situation that say like Purdue is in right now, where they've got 6 new guys coming in. And I don't even know how many guys they have that would be seniors without looking it up. But regardless of that fact, that means at a minimum, over half of their team in the 25-26 season, which is the season after this one upcoming, will be underclassmen. And that's not what you're wanting, but we'll see how that works out. It's going to be an interesting season for Indiana coming up. What can they do with all that they have already added to the roster, which the upgrade in talent is immense. The upgrade in athletic ability is immense. The upgrade in potential is immense. How does the coaching staff take advantage of that? Well, that's something that Hoosier fans will have to wait and see. It's also going to be interesting on the football side because they've been upgraded in every way as well, from the coaching on down. Players, I just saw that they had another commitment from a 4-star athlete, a 4-star player for Indiana. So
that's Chris McCorkle from Sarasota, Florida.
Yeah, getting a Florida recruit on top of that. After just losing defensive back yesterday, John Boy, you're
Toby
right on
Minor,
top of it.
The transfer portal.
Yeah, but they get a defensive back from where is that in? Where'd you say that is? In Florida?
Sarasota.
Oh, Sarasota. So what made him choose Indiana was the way they welcomed him right away. They made him feel like he was home. They showed a lot of love to him and to his peers as well. So that was a big part of it. He's a 6'1" quarterback, man. That's good size. So Indiana adding in pieces and all that. Tomorrow on the program, we have something special for you. And for those that didn't stick around until the end, well, hopefully they're here tomorrow to see it. But how about Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer joining us tomorrow? Looking forward to that. And then, of course, Kyle Neddenrip from the Indy Star, as well as the captain, Rick Bozich. So big time show lineup tomorrow. Looking forward to it as we'll talk to Kalen again. It's been a bit. As the last time we talked to him, he was, I think, heading into the national championship,
into the college football playoff.
Yeah, heading into the college football championships for last season, and now he's at Alabama. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to appreciate him as always. I cannot tell you guys how much I appreciate you all as well as always, and of course to Mike DeCourcy and Chronic Hoosier for joining us here on the program today, and to John for keeping us between the white lines. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.